Long before the walls of Troy fell and the great Greek heroes set sail to wage war, there was a single moment that set the world on the path to destruction. It began not with swords or spears, but with a golden apple, a simple fruit that would spark jealousy, rivalry, and ultimately the Trojan War. This is the story of how the apple of discord, a symbol of vanity and pride, led to one of the greatest wars in Greek mythology. The tale begins with a grand celebration, the wedding of the mortal hero Peleus and the beautiful sea nymph Thetis. It was a union blessed by the gods, for Peleus was a respected warrior, and Thetis was a divine beauty, coveted by even the gods themselves. Their wedding was held on the slopes of Mount Pelion, and it was the grandest event the world had seen, attended by all the gods of Olympus. Zeus, king of the gods, sent invitations far and wide, summoning all to celebrate this joyous occasion. The guests included the gods and goddesses of Olympus, the nymphs, and even mortals of great renown. The tables were filled with ambrosia, and the air was filled with laughter and music. It was a celebration meant to honor love, but beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. One goddess, however, was not invited to the festivities: Eris, the goddess of discord and strife. Known for sowing chaos wherever she went, Aris was considered too dangerous and disruptive for such a joyous event. Furious at being excluded, Aris plotted her revenge. She would crash the wedding, and in doing so, plant the seed of discord that would ultimately lead to the fall of Troy. As the celebration reached its peak, Aris made her move. With a dark and mischievous smile, she appeared at the edge of the wedding feast, unnoticed by most of the guests. In her hand, she held a single golden apple, which she had inscribed with the words, "To the Fairest." Aris threw the golden apple into the center of the feast, watching with delight as it landed near the feet of the goddesses. At first, the apple went unnoticed, but soon three of the most powerful goddesses laid their eyes upon it: Hera, queen of the gods; Athena, goddess of wisdom and war; and Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty. Each of these goddesses believed herself to be the fairest of them all, and thus the rightful owner of the golden apple. A murmur spread through the crowd as they debated who should claim the prize. Eris, her work complete, vanished into the night, leaving chaos in her wake. The goddesses turned to Zeus, the king of the gods, and demanded that he settle the matter. Who was the fairest? Who deserved the golden apple? Zeus, knowing that no matter whom he chose, he would incur the wrath of the other two, wisely declined to judge. Instead, he decreed that the decision would be made by a mortal, a man named Paris, the prince of Troy. Paris was the son of King Priam and Queen Hecuba of Troy, but he had been raised as a simple shepherd, far from the royal court. At his birth, it had been prophesied that Paris would bring ruin to Troy, so his parents had sent him away to live in the mountains. Unaware of his royal heritage, Paris grew up as a humble shepherd, tending his flock and living a quiet life. One day, as Paris tended his sheep on Mount Ida, he was visited by the god Hermes, who carried a message from Zeus. Paris was to judge which of the three goddesses, Hera, Athena, or Aphrodite, was the fairest and therefore worthy of the golden apple. It was a choice that would not only affect his life, but the fate of Troy and all of Greece. The three goddesses appeared in front of Paris undressed and asked him to choose the most beautiful, but he couldn't choose, so the goddesses tried to bribe him. Hera, the queen of the gods, was the first to speak. "Paris," she said, "choose me as the fairest, and I will make you the ruler of all the lands of Asia and Europe. You will be the most powerful king the world has ever seen." Next, Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, stepped forward. "Paris, if you choose me, I will grant you unmatched wisdom and skill in battle. You will be victorious in every war you fight, and you will be hailed as the greatest warrior of all time." Finally, Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, approached Paris. She smiled sweetly and said, "Paris, if you choose me, I will give you the most beautiful woman in the world as your wife. Her beauty will be unmatched, and she will be yours forever." Paris, swayed by the promise of love, chose Aphrodite as the fairest of the goddesses. He handed her the golden apple, sealing his fate and the fate of Troy. Hera and Athena, enraged by their loss, vowed revenge, and from that moment on, they would work against Paris and the city of Troy. True to her word, Aphrodite promised Paris the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen, the queen of Sparta. There was just one problem. Helen was already married to Menelaus, the king of Sparta. Paris, now aware of his royal heritage and eager to claim his prize, traveled to Sparta as a guest of Menelaus. While there, he met Helen, and Aphrodite's influence made her fall in love with him. The two lovers fled Sparta together, sailing back to Troy. When Menelaus discovered that his wife had been taken by Paris, he was furious. His anger knew no bounds, and he called upon his brother, Agamemnon, the king of Mycenae, to help him retrieve Helen. Agamemnon, eager for glory and conquest, saw this as an opportunity to unite the Greek city-states and launch an invasion of Troy. Menelaus and Agamemnon called upon the greatest warriors and kings of Greece to join them in their campaign against Troy. Among them were the legendary heroes. Achilles, the mightiest warrior of Greece, nearly invincible in battle. Odysseus, the cunning king of Ithaca, known for his cleverness and strategic mind. Ajax, a towering warrior with unmatched strength. Diomedes, a brave and skilled fighter. And many others, each bringing their armies to join the fight. The Greek forces gathered at the port of Aulis, their ships ready to sail to Troy. It was an army unlike any the world had ever seen, united in a single cause: to retrieve Helen and punish Troy for the insult to Menelaus's honor. But before they could set sail, they needed a favorable wind. The goddess Artemis, angry with Agamemnon for an earlier offense, had stilled the winds, preventing the Greeks from launching their ships. To appease her, Agamemnon was forced to sacrifice his own daughter, Iphigenia, a tragic act that would haunt him throughout the war. Once the sacrifice was made, the winds filled the sails, and the Greek fleet set off across the Aegean Sea, bound for Troy. The war that followed would last 10 years, filled with bloodshed, heroism, and tragedy. The Greeks landed on the shores of Troy and laid siege to the city. The war raged for a decade, with both sides suffering great losses. Heroes on both sides rose and fell, and the gods themselves took part in the conflict, with Hera and Athena supporting the Greeks, and Aphrodite and Apollo aiding the Trojans. Hector, the noble prince of Troy, fought valiantly to defend his city, while Achilles, driven by rage and glory, became the greatest champion of the Greeks. The war saw many battles, betrayals, and acts of heroism, but it was always overshadowed by the original cause, the theft of Helen and the judgment of Paris. In the end, the city of Troy was doomed. The Greeks, with Odysseus's cunning plan, built the Trojan horse, a wooden structure that hid Greek soldiers within. Believing it to be a gift of surrender, the Trojans brought the horse into their city, unknowingly sealing their fate. That night, the Greek soldiers emerged from the horse, opened the gates, and let their army in. Troy was destroyed, and the war came to a bloody end. The golden apple thrown by Eris at the wedding of Peleus and Thetis had set into motion a series of events that led to the destruction of Troy and the deaths of countless heroes. The apple of discord had proved that even the smallest spark of envy and pride could ignite a war that would burn nations to the ground. And so, the story of the Trojan War, and the apple that started it all, became a warning to mortals and gods alike about the dangers of vanity, jealousy, and the unending pursuit of power and beauty.